2022 Ducati Streetfighter V2 review. Better than the V4. When it comes to creating beautiful motorcycles, Ducati is perhaps the best in the business. One look at the Panigale will make you weak in the knees. Even the big and burly Multistrada V4 looks awesome. And don't even get me started on the new DesertX. Yet, the Ducati model design I like the most is the Streetfighter V4. Everything about the bike is stunning. It's elegant and sexy, and it's also imposing and aggressive. The Streetfighter V4 gets a 1100cc Desmosedici Stradale V4 that unleashes 208 fire-breathing horses. I spent a good amount of time on the V4 last year, and though it's pretty manageable for experienced riders, it's still a stripped-down version of the Panigale V4, which means that the performance is not for everyone. 208 horsepower is rather absurd for a street bike, and not because of the immense power, but because you will rarely get to experience its full potential unless you take it to the racetrack. The latest Streetfighter V2, on the other hand, is for a more, let's say, sensible customer. It's a stripped-down version of the Panigale V2 that will be more accessible to Ducati enthusiasts. I was fortunate to fly to Bologna last month and visit Ducati headquarters, and my loaner bike for the trip was none other than the Streetfighter V2. Not only was I very impressed with the less powerful engine, but I was also amazed at how easy and comfortable the baby Streetfighter was to ride on a daily basis. Can't keep my eyes off the Ducati Streetfighter V2. I was in love with the Streetfighter V4, and I feel the same way about the V2. The Streetfighter V2 looks like the V4, apart from the wings, which are now optional, and a few other minor changes to the fairings. But, the V2 has still got a phenomenal road presence. Even when it's parked, it looks fast, and every time I was walking away from the motorcycle, I found myself turning back at least twice to look at it again. It has got a nice supermoto stance, and it has muscle in the right places. The fuel tank and fairings have great lines that are sharp. The headlight cowl design features an LED strip that gives the bike an angry face, and the rear is narrow with only the massive Pirelli Diablo Rosso IV tire on display. The Streetfighter V2 gets a cast aluminum airbox frame, which is different from the V4. But, it does get the same wheels, and the same Sachs shock absorbers, but in a more road-biased state of tune. The straight bar is the same, but the riding posture is less aggressive. Surprisingly, the V2 weighs nearly the same as the Streetfighter V4 at 440 pounds. It also gets a 16 mm longer single-sided swing arm to bring more weight towards the front section of the motorcycle. Because the Streetfighter will offer a more relaxed ride than the Panigale V2, it gets a wider subframe and a wider seat as well. It's also higher. The only design flaw is the 4.3-inch TFT display, which I felt was a little too small, and some riders will even complain that there is no Bluetooth connectivity. The Ducati Streetfighter V2 lets the rider take full control. The first thing I noticed when I saddled up on the V2 was how comfortable it was. Not only does the seat feel great, but the ergonomics are fantastic. For riders over 6 feet, there is plenty of legroom, and you could easily, and comfortably, ride this bike for hours within city limits. The bike feels a lot like a supermoto, and at times it even reminded me of the Streetfighter 848, albeit a modern take on that bike. The Streetfighter V2 is very easy to ride, and it's accessible to a wide range of riders. What impressed me about this baby Streetfighter is that it handles like a dream. The chassis itself is brilliant, and the bike feels well planted and well balanced always. The front feels stable, and the steering has pinpoint accuracy. The Streetfighter drops into corners with such ease that it's confidence-inspiring. A lot of that has to do with the fact that you feel more relaxed handling the lesser power output. The acceleration doesn't frighten you, and the throttle response won't make your heart skip a beat. In fact, the throttle can be open wide all the time, unlike the V4. With the V2, the harder you push it, the better it gets. The brakes are also less aggressive, so you can press them harder and stay in control, and the ABS somehow doesn't kick in at the wrong moment. At high speeds, the handlebar felt a little jumpy, but the bike was always stable. The rear tire in the form of the 180/60th Pirelli Diablo Rosso IV allows for better side grip, which is fantastic for riding on the road. Windshield protection is obviously not the best on a naked, and that's why when you are cruising at 75 miles per hour, you might feel as if you are going faster. Keep in mind that all this is great for city riding, but once you decide to take the Streetfighter V2 to a track, it would be quite demanding to get the fastest lap times out of it. There is no doubt that it will be fun, but it's no track tool. Instead, the Streetfighter V4 is more capable and fun to ride on the street or some nice twisty canyon roads. Less power but more engaging than the Streetfighter V4. The tour de force of the V4 is the engine, which produces a maniacal 208 horsepower. That much power seems to be a bit of an overkill for someone who wants to ride the bike in the city. Make no mistake though, with the different riding modes, the V4 can still be a pretty comfortable bike to ride in the city as well, but it's got nothing on the Streetfighter V4 when it comes to making the rider feel more in control and engaged. The Streetfighter V4 gets the same engine from the Panigale V4, which is a 955cc V-twin that can churn out a very healthy 150 horsepower. For a typical naked sports enthusiast, 150 horses is more than enough to have fun with. You don't need me to tell you that the V4 is not as quick off the line as the V4. In fact, the Streetfighter V4 does feel a little sluggish when you try to accelerate in either first or second gear. Torque is also down-rated at 74.7 pound-feet, so you do not have to hold on for dear life when you twist the throttle all the way open. The good thing though is that the gear ratios are now shorter, so you can shift through quicker, and as the revs climb, the Streetfighter starts to get right into its groove. The gearbox itself is also fantastic. The V4 engine offers a very wide spread of easy-to-grab power, and I felt that this made me enjoy the bike a lot more than the V4. The Streetfighter V4 is less sadistic in the sense that it allows you to push it and still feel in complete control. It's certainly more engaging and more fun to ride on city streets. The V4 doesn't feel bothered or aroused when you are in the lower end of the power band, and sometimes demands you to twist your wrist more, but you have to be very cautious. You can certainly feel the ferocity of the V4 when you are riding it. The V4 on the other hand is more easygoing, but is still a wicked blast to ride. The performance of the V4 will certainly please the more sensible riders, and that's because this baby Streetfighter sits somewhere between the middleweight and the full-blown sport bike category. The Ducati Streetfighter V4 is an expensive motorcycle. The Streetfighter V4 comes with a bunch of goodies. There is traction control and cornering abs with slide control that come standard. There is also an up-down quickshifter, and anti-wheelie braking control. It also has 3 riding modes you can toggle between: Sport, Road, and Wet. Sport mode makes the bike livelier, and when you want to take it easy you can switch to Road mode. The Streetfighter V4 seems like a fantastic motorcycle, and it really is. The only major downside is that it carries a very heavy price tag of $16,995. The Streetfighter also doesn't have much competition. Below it sits the Yamaha MT-09, Kawasaki Z900, and the KTM 890R. Go a step higher, and you have the Triumph Street Triple RS and the KTM 1290 Super Duke. But none of the competition comes close to the Ducati when it comes to style and road presence. It's beautifully made and well equipped. Its handling capabilities are wonderful, and all you have to do is look in the direction you want to go, and the bike will take you there. It's also got a booming exhaust sound, and it's got enough of power on tap for plenty of fun. I have ridden the entire lineup of Ducati's new sports bikes, and it's pretty evident that the Italian manufacturer is making a serious effort to make their superbikes more friendly and accessible, and move away from the serious track tools they have been selling for years. From the looks of things, they seem to be doing a great job.